You know them when you smell them. Those big, fluffy, soft pretzels with all of that sea salt on top. You go to the mall to get them, baseball games. Well, guess what? I'm telling you right now, you can make them even better in your own kitchen. What is up, you guys? It's Carly here, and you are officially cooking with Carly. To make these pretzels, we are going to start out with warm water. We want the water to be 110 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. If you have an instant read thermometer, you can test that. If you don't, just test the water on your wrist right here, and it should feel pretty warm on your wrist, but not burning. I'm gonna go grab some warm water. Okay, here I have my water. I'm just gonna test to see. So we're at about 101, so that's fine. That is warm enough to get the yeast kicking and alive. So what we're going to do with our water, we're measuring it out separately because we're going to proof the yeast, which just basically means to make sure it's alive and kicking before we mix in all of the flour, because there's nothing worse than mixing it all together and then the dough never rises. So we have 1 cup of water here, and the recipe calls for 1 packet of yeast. I actually buy mine in bulk, and if you do the same, 1 packet is the same as 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. So that's what I have here. The yeast needs something to eat for it to grow and to activate. So we've got a tablespoon of sugar here, and I'm just going to quickly give this a stir, and we're going to wait about 5 minutes, and we will see this yeast come alive. Here is a sped up version of what your yeast will be doing in your bowl. Okay, we've sat here for about 5-10 minutes, and you can see that there's this nice foamy layer on top, and that means it's working well and your dough will rise. So we are going to use the dough hook for this recipe. If you have a different stand mixer, just use your dough hook. And if you don't have a stand mixer, you can definitely still make this recipe. You will just want to probably skip the gym for the next couple of days because it will be a workout. First, in goes the yeast and water mixture. We have a tablespoon of melted butter, 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. You do not need any fancy flour for this. This just goes right in to the mixing bowl. Salt. This is a teaspoon of salt. We're going to just turn our mixer on until this dough comes together, and the dough is a dream to work with. It shouldn't stick to the sides of the bowl, but it should still be very soft and malleable. Here's the texture of the dough. You can see that it doesn't stick to my hands at all, and it cleaned the inside of the bowl as my stand mixer was kneading it. This is what your texture should look like. Now we're going to let the dough rest and rise. You can do this by just leaving it inside of your bowl and covering it with plastic wrap or a towel or something and letting it rise until it is double in size. But I'm going to utilize my trusty Instant Pot, and we are going to double this thing in 15 minutes flat. I'm going to use my Instant Pot to proof this dough really fast. If you have an Instant Pot that has a yogurt setting, you can do this too. So first thing we want to do is spray the inside of the pot with some cooking spray, or you can coat it with a little bit of oil just so that the dough doesn't stick. So I'm just going to put this in here and move it around so the whole thing is coated with this cooking spray. Now what we're going to do is press the yogurt button. So we're going to press yogurt, and we want it here in normal. Don't put it on no more, or else you're going to cook the dough, and less won't proof it quite as fast. So make sure it's yogurt, normal. It should say 8 here, and then after it beeps, it'll turn to 0 and actually count up for us. We're now going to cover this. I happen to have a fancy lid that fits. You don't have to have a fancy one. In fact, go shopping in your own cupboards before you buy a fancy one, because you probably have a lid for an existing pot and pan set that will fit. We are going to let this dough rise for 15 minutes. While this dough is proofing, would you please take the time to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, hit that notification bell, and comment down below to tell me your absolute favorite kind of bread. As you can see, it is counted up to 15 minutes, so our dough has proofed beautifully. Come take a look at this. It's about double in size. It is amazing what the Instant Pot can do. I'm going to pull this dough out. I'm going to flatten it and let it rest for just a second while I prepare our baking soda bath. I'm going to use my Instant Pot for the baking soda bath just because it has a saute button and it can boil water just as easily as my stovetop. If you don't have an Instant Pot though, you can do this on the stove. I filled up my liner here with about 4 cups of water, and I have about 3 tablespoons to 1/4 of a cup of baking soda, and I am just putting it in there. You'll have to press cancel first and then hit saute, and I'm going to press my adjust button until it gets to more right there. I'm going to put my lid on and just let that boil while I shape our pretzels. And again, if you don't have the Instant Pot, feel free to boil this water on your stovetop. Let's cut this dough into 8 equal pieces. We'll set aside the dough that we're not working with, and we are going to just roll this into a nice long rope. And this dough, like I said earlier, is a dream. It won't stick to your countertop, so no need for extra flour, so it is super easy to just roll this into a nice long rope. Once you have a nice long rope, we're going to shape the long rope into a U, and we're going to cross the top once and cross it again, and take these little ends and bring them down to the bottom of the U, pinch them into place, and then you can shape the top. While we're waiting on the water and baking soda bath to boil, I'm going to prep an egg white and grab my coarse salt to put on top of the pretzels before they go into the oven. And also right now is a great time to preheat that oven. Whoa! I'm going to separate this egg here, just keeping the white in the bowl. And we will brush this on the pretzel before it goes into the oven so that the salt sticks to the pretzel. I'm just going to beat this quickly with a fork. We are starting to boil in here. I'm going to prep my pan with a little parchment paper on there. You definitely want either parchment paper or a silicone baking mat. Don't try to bake these right on your pan or they may stick. Our water is boiling, so we're just going to give these a quick dunk. You want them to literally be in the water for no more than 30 seconds or they'll turn out really quite bitter. Brush the tops with your egg white and then sprinkle with sea salt if you have some. If you don't, you can just do a little bit of the regular salt. You can find this coarse sea salt just down your baking aisle at your local grocery store. Buy the regular salt. Let's pop these in the oven. And our oven is not preheated yet. It looks like those big fluffy pretzels are done in the oven. I'm gonna go pull them out and plate them up so I can show you. Here we have it, the best homemade soft pretzel recipe ever. So easy, they taste amazing. Come get a little closer. Look at that. They're so soft, tender, and fluffy. Next time that pretzel craving hits, skip the baseball games. Don't make the special trip to the mall. Just make them at your own home in your own kitchen. They are absolutely delicious.